Hey everybody, Max here, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the McFarlane Collector Edition DC Multiverse Deadshot. I have been looking forward to this guy for a little while. He's pretty cool. He's one of those Batman villains that, he doesn't get a lot of hype, but he has been used very well by several writers in the comics, particularly in the Suicide Squad and Secret Six series. Those are really good. They've definitely fleshed out the character and his motivations and what he can do and why he does it. And he's just kind of fascinating in a way. He's got his own moral code, and he does what he does to basically provide for his family and particularly his daughter. So yeah, I think what they have done here it turned out fairly well. He uses parts from the Speeding Bullets Batman figure, the arms and the legs mostly, but everything else looks fairly new. It's the paint turned out fairly well, and other than one little thing in the neck and the head area, I'll go into that. He's a very solid figure, and I got to say I'm fairly pleased with it. So let's just dive into it. I usually talk about the box first. He comes with he's got the trading card in here and the stand. I usually leave it there unless I need the stand, but I've got so many of those I don't need it. And pretty cool artwork. I think this is from Luke McDaniel, perhaps. He was a artist on the Suicide Squad. Correct me if I am wrong on that. So he's got I mean, when you get right down to it, he's got a fairly outlandish look in terms of costuming and everything, but for what it's worth, I mean, it works. It's very unique looking, all the reds and yellows and silvers and everything, but it's kind of iconic in a way. So anyway, he that is Deadshot, number 35 in the collector line. Let's see. Well, let's go to the accessories. So he comes with a lot of these gun attachments, which is great. He has the two non-firing gun attachments, wrist guns. He's got two firing ones. One is on his right, and then you got another one. I'm probably going to have to warm these up because they look a little warped, so I'm going to heat these up and hopefully straighten them out a bit. And there's also some plastic flashing here and there that you may have to trim off to make it seat properly on the wrist peg. And then he has these two smoke effects, although this one is so big it almost looks like a flamethrower. But the paint turned out fairly well. It's kind of muted. Some blast effects are very bright red, bright yellow, but the colors are very muted, I would say. I think the firing, where is it? I think this could probably be brighter. I would like to see a brighter orange or brighter yellow, but hey, you can always paint that yourself. And I'm surprised the smoke effects are not gray or black or something like that. But I'm not really dinging it. I think the sculpt looked really good. I think those turned out fairly well, and you can see some of the flashing there. So I'm gonna have to trim that out a little bit. But yeah, if you don't like it, you could probably paint it light black, gray, something like that. He comes with one, two, three sets of hands. So he's got the two fists that you see here. He has two trigger finger hands. And even though he does not come with any traditional weapons, I'm glad that they added these hands so that if you have some 7-inch scale weapons, he can certainly use them. So, because he's been depicted using traditional weapons and firearms and things like that in the past, so you have that option. So they were kind of thinking ahead. And now that I think about it, I think McFarlane does have a standalone weapons pack that they sell off of the website only which is weird because DC doesn't want their characters to be depicted with firearms. I used Sergeant Rock as an example. And then he has these, let's see, two finger pointing hands. So, right and left. So he can point where he's going to shoot. So the only interesting thing about these hands is that while they're yellow, the plastic seems to be kind of a greenish. If you look inside the peg hole there's kind of a greenish hue. And then on this hand, the yellow didn't quite get into the seams. And so you see this greenish hue. So I don't know why they did that. Why is this kind of a greenish plastic and not a white plastic? So that's a little strange. But the paint looks a little, it looks okay. I mean, it's flat, uniform, and there's detail. I guess it just looks a little a little cheap to me on the hands. So, but hopefully the color lasts. So yeah, and taking these, you can take these off fairly easily, and then you have these wrist pegs right here, and there was a little flashing there on this one here that I had to trim off, not so much this one. So they're fairly secure, so they're pretty good, and I definitely like that they added that and they didn't, chicken out and not give us any weapons for a guy who's known for being a firearms expert. So I'm going to talk, the only real thing that I have to ding this guy on is the head sculpt is great, but the head articulation is terrible. He looks down okay, it's very stiff, but he does not look up at all. And trying to turn his head, I'm going to have to heat this guy up because there's something resisting him turning around. And when he turns his head, it always kind of, there's something that's kind of making his head do that. So he doesn't just turn straight. There's like a ratchet or something in there. So I'm going to have to heat this guy up and see what I can do and work that out. So other than that, the paint on the reticle is pretty good. The black, there's even some white in the eye. I think what I would have liked is some black outline around the eye. I have a Gundam marker, and that's something I'm going to try. I'm going to try and get a little black outline around the eye there, just to give it a little more texture, just a little more dramatic effect, because it's just really, I mean, it's just one white dot, right there for the eye. I mean, I'm glad it's there, but and the plastic is very good. It's the color, I should say, kind of a silvery white. It's not just bright white, so that's interesting too. So, but that kind of goes along with the picture, which is, white is usually used in comics to indicate silver. So they didn't give us silver per se, which usually is kind of a gunmetal, like say that Marvel Legends Ultron. But they also didn't give us um, they didn't paint it silver or anything like that, like say the ROM figure from Marvel Legends. So, but there is that chase variant that's a more maroon red and kind of a grayish. So, but honestly, I'm happier with this one. If they had, if I'd gotten the chase, that would have been great. I would have been fine with either one. But this is really the one I was wanting the most because it's more of the traditional colors. So the paint on the chest, obviously this is the plastic color, and then they had to paint the yellow and the black and the red, and it honestly turned out fairly well. I mean, you can tell a difference between the red of the plastic and the flat red of the paint, and actually there is a little bit of a run of paint right there. So the back, the yellow right there, the red paint kind of, they didn't quite get that, so I might have to touch that up a little bit. But on a whole, this torso piece looks good. Not so much the armband, which, in the picture, these are the raised pieces. So it's it's either a part of the costume, maybe their weapons, something like that. So they didn't sculpt that. They could have, but they just decided to paint it on over the arms from that speeding bullets. Now, the honest to gosh, I think I would have been fine with the yellow just being gone. If you're not going to sculpt it so that it looks like that, just don't put it on there. The paint's not even that great right here. So I might actually strip that off because it just doesn't look, with the ridges on the arms, which is not a part of the costume on the, as it's drawn. I may just wipe these off and just let it kind of be the way it is. You know, so that's the thing about McFarlane that I ding them on for, is they use parts, like they sculpt parts for certain characters, and then they use those parts for different characters, and they don't often work right. They just paint over ridges and boot cuffs and things like that. So it just feels lazy to me, as opposed to just don't sculpt it, just sculpt a normal body, just no ridges, no raised portions, nothing like that. Just sculpt it like a human person, just a whatever arm it is or what appendage or what have you, and just paint over it. So so you don't end up with situations like that. So yeah, maybe if it would have turned out better if the circle segments were bigger, because they're more pronounced in the picture. So these look awfully small. So maybe if they had made them a little bigger, more in keeping with what they look like in the picture, it might have turned out better. But then again, they might have had to use more paint. So anyway, let's talk about articulation. Talked about the neck. Really good. Gets a T-pose. Has the floating shoulder. And looks good. A little loose, but not too bad. Nothing crazy. A little loose on this side, but a little stiff on the right side. So lefty loosey, righty tighty. And he turns. Now the shape, there's a little wobble in the torso here, so he does not lean forward very well. He goes back further, which seems to be the case with most action figures nowadays. So he can turn at the waist. There is some pivot, but the shape of the torso, it's not rounded right here, so it's more oblong. So you can twist it, but there's resistance. Let me get my hand out of the way. So you see how it the plastic rubs, and if you're not careful, because it's just kind of very lumpy, this lower torso piece is a little oddly shaped. It doesn't really mesh well with the musculature of the lower or the upper part. So he can rotate fairly well at the lower waist. So that's good. That offsets that. But so it's a little limited right there. And once you start monkeying around with moving it, it starts getting loose, and that's something that just bugs me. I wish it didn't do that. So I wish it would just stay flush and fluid. So anyway, let's get into, okay, so the bicep swivel is pretty good. Pinned joints, good range of motion on both sides. Now the wrist, I wish the wrist was yellow. I don't know why they stuck with red. I think yellow would have been better. But it's nothing to really complain about, I guess. It just seems a little incongruous, perhaps. So, but yeah, good range of motion, and everything looks to scale. Like those Superman fists in my Superman videos, those Superman hands are just terrible, just so big and out of proportion. Let's see. So this, I always thought, I guess this is like a magazine, something like that, or just an ammo pouch, and it just kind of it on the picture here. There's a thigh strap, but they didn't even. Honestly, I'm glad they didn't paint one. Just let it flop, let it hang. That's fine. I'm cool with that because it would hinder leg articulation if there was an actual other strap, probably. Now this waist piece is, I think it comes down a little too low, and I would love to see. I need to do a little research and see if anybody has actually trimmed this so that it doesn't hinder range of motion in the leg, because he has pretty good range of motion, but the diaper piece, I hate calling it that, but I don't know what else would you call it. It just kind of comes down too low and kind of hinders a bit. So, but he actually has a little more thigh rotation than most McFarlane figures, which is nice. I certainly would like to see a thigh cut, but I don't think we're going to get that, considering this is the last year McFarlane's going to have the DC license. So we kind of have to, we're going to get what we get as we round out the year, and I'm interested to see what else we get from him. Interested in the upcoming traditional Nightwing, classic Nightwing. We'll see how that turns out. But again, kind of ribs down the leg, and that's fine. It's not exactly, I would have preferred just smooth plastic, but hey, it's okay. And let's see. The boots look good. Obviously, the ribs in the boot are not depicted on in the picture, but again, at least they got the paint right. So there's that, and pretty good range of motion in the feet and the ankle swivel, and then toe articulation. So yeah, this is a fairly solid figure, other than some wobble in the waist and this head. Everything else flows fairly well. I'm going to have to, work this particular, shoulder joint. But let's get his guns back on. He's got a contract to fulfill, and Batman keeps trying to stop him. Alrighty. So there is Deadshot, Floyd Lawton, one of the original members of the Suicide Squad. Alright, guys. So I'm going to give this guy a warp factor of, you know what? I think I'm going to give him an 8. I think he's an 8. It is what it is with McFarlane, but when it's good, it's good. And I think this is a good figure. And I'm glad that I have it. I'm glad I picked it up for a lower price, because I don't really think I really don't think that this figure is worth $30. And I'm glad that Best Buy saw that and lowered it, because it probably wasn't selling, and so they wanted to make a little money off of it. So I got it for about like 20, 22, something like that. So I felt like that's a fair price, as opposed to 30. So yeah, check out Best Buy. It might still be up at the time of this recording. I think it's still on sale. If not, hey, play the long game a little longer. It might go on sale again. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments section. Warp factor of 8 for Mr. Floyd Lawton, Deadshot, and I will talk at you guys next time.